Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first real episode of the Water Women podcast. My name is Jill, and I'm your host and also the creator of this podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to Nicole Leavitt Kennedy, who's my boss, but also a friend. I've worked for Nicole for almost 4 years now at Island Quest Marine Whale Watch and St. Andrews Sport Fishing. I've loved every second of working with Nicole, and I've learned so much from her about all the different whales and the sharks and other species that we have here in the Bay of Fundy. Nicole grew up around the ocean, so she found her love of it quite early on in age and stuck with it and made it her passion and later on her career, which I think is super cool. Now Nicole works for her family-owned business of Island Quest Whale Watching and St. Andrews Sport Fishing, and she does shark tagging off of the St. Andrews Sport Fishing boat to learn more about the species of shark in the bay, but you'll hear all about that in a second talking to her. Before we jump into talking to Nicole, I would like to let you guys know that we do have social media for this podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Water Women Podcast, on Twitter at Water Women Pod, and on Facebook you can search us up at Water Women Podcast. We'd love for you to give us a follow on any of those platforms to keep up with all the brand new exciting things that we have coming with this podcast. This is just the first of many, so stay tuned. And now, let's jump in with Nicole. So hi, Nicole. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thanks so much for having me today, Jill.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you on. So as I said before, Nicole is my boss at Island Quest, but she's also more of a friend than anything.
We are definitely kindred hearts, kindred spirits.
We're a lot alike. A lot of people ask if we're sisters on the boat, and I love it. It makes me really happy.
They do.
So you did grow up around the ocean. Do you think that played a role in you getting into marine sciences, or how did you get into this? Like, how did you find this path?
Absolutely. So, being from St. Andrews, I spent a lot of time in the intertidal zone. That was like my big first intro into the ocean. Mom and Dad would take me down to the beach when I was little, and we would look under the seaweed and look for crabs and periwinkles and all of the cool critters. But I come from a long line of fishermen, actually, lobstermen. So my dad is a 7th generation lobsterman, so we have a very long history of being on the ocean and a passion and love for everything ocean related. So my choice for marine science as a career path, it wasn't even a choice. It was just, I knew what I wanted to do ever since I was little. There was no choice. It is what it is.
You just knew it's what you were doing.
Yep, that was my goal, and I got through university with, the marine science background, and I knew I just wanted to keep continuing it. So
that's awesome.
Here we are.
So your family owns the Island Quest Whale Watch and St. Andrews Sport Fishing. When did that start? How did it start?
So my parents started Island Quest Marine Whale Watching in 1999. So I was fairly young then.
Yeah.
So I actually started guiding on board the boat when I was quite young, so that was a lot of fun. But no, Dad retired from lobster fishing with my grandfather prior to that, and Dad is a master boat builder as well, so he has a huge passion for the ocean and for boat building. So he decided that he wanted to build a boat and take people whale watching.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's what we did. So Dad actually built our boat from the ground up, and away we went in May of 1999.
It's a beautiful boat. My favorite, probably. I think the best boat.
It is a beautiful boat. Dad has a very good eye for design.
And when did the sport fishing start?
So sport fishing began, I believe, in 2007.
Okay.
So Dad, again, getting back to the whole being a fisherman thing, Dad loves whale watching, but his passion is fishing as well.
Yeah.
And so Dad started fishing for different species in this area, such as cod, haddock, like a wide variety of things.
Yeah.
Flounder being my favorite.
Of course.
But Dad started fishing, and we started actually seeing a lot of sharks when we were fishing. And Dad came to me. I was in university at the time, doing my bachelor's degree in science. He came to me and asked me about the sharks. What's going on here? Are they here year-round? What species are we seeing? Where are they going from here? How are they utilizing the bay? And I didn't really have any answers for him. So I went searching, and I came into contact with Dr. Turnbull from UMBSJ. And Dr. Turnbull thought that we could make a great partnership in the fact that, we have the fishing expertise, and Dr. Turnbull has, all of the science background, with myself kind of being the intermediary. Yeah. And we decided to catch, tag, and release sharks in the bay.
Yeah, that's so cool. So we do have 6 different kinds of sharks here.
We do.
But you guys focus specifically on porbeagles?
We do, yes. So porbeagles, or lamninesus, is our species of interest. That is the species of shark that we see most commonly in the bay. Here in our area, a lot of the times they're misjudged as either whites or thrasher sharks, which is the common thought here in the bay. But as you mentioned, we do have a number of species here, and porbeagles seem to be the most common.
So I know they're your species of interest, and I know that they're protected in Canadian waters, but just across the bay in American waters, they're not protected. So how does that affect this tagging?
So we actually, we fish quite close to the American border. We have a lot of success in certain areas, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that our sharks, when they're caught and when they're being tagged, are being kept as healthy as possible.
Absolutely.
And upon release, we want to make sure that our sharks look good and they're ready to go and continue on in their life. But saying that, not everyone has the same goals for sharks in the bay. They do see what we do by catching and releasing them. So unfortunately, there are other fishermen that will go out specifically to catch and kill sharks, and that is very close to here, as we're literally a stone's throw from the U.S., the border of the U.S. So it's hard to see because we're working so diligently in trying to increase awareness about how important sharks are for the ecosystem, and especially here in the Bay of Fundy, we're seeing a decrease in a number of animals, species distribution, and other things like that. But it's been a long fight, to be honest, because we do see sharks that are being killed every single summer while we're out. So it's hard, but we're doing our best to educate the public on how important sharks are.
I love that. So what makes sharks so vital to ecosystems? Because you've heard the quote of good reef will always have sharks around there. So what is it that makes them such a keystone species?
Well, sharks are important. They keep fish populations very healthy. We've had a lot of white sharks actually over the last few years, and they're apex predators.
Absolutely.
Not just the white sharks, but all of the species of sharks that we have here. They help clean up the populations. They are helping decompose dead whales in our area. So there's many factors that go into how important sharks are for our region.
So we have those 6 sharks. It's the porbeagle, the white, the thresher, the blue. What am I forgetting?
The
mako, great fin mako.
The short fin mako.
Short fin mako.
Yep.
Always mess that up.
Whites, threshers, porbeagles, makos, blues, and then we also have
basking sharks.
That is correct, basking sharks. So those are the big main 6, but we also have some little smaller sharks too,
really?
Right? So there are more than 6, but the large 6 pelagic species are the ones that you mentioned.
Yes. So do you have a favorite of them?
Well,
the porbeagles maybe?
Yeah, it definitely has to be the porbeagles. Out of all of the sharks that I've had the chance to meet in my lifetime, which has been a fair few.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that porbeagles are my favorite.
I love that.
Yeah.
So with the partnership with with Dr. Turnbull and UMB, what have you guys found? Have you any? I know it's an ongoing kind of thing, but what have you found so far?
So what we're doing is we've placed satellite tags. So we have spot tags and PSAT tags that are out. And then we're also FLOI tags, so they're just essentially ID tags. So that's a recapture thing, or if they're recited again, we're in hopes that people will see the names and number on the tag and give us a call, hopefully, which we have had some come back to us. But what we've gleaned so far from the research that we've done is that the sharks are a lot more migratory than we thought that they were. So we've actually, we've tracked our sharks as far south as Cape Cod.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and as far north as Newfoundland waters, which has been really, really cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so they're utilizing the bay in quite an interesting way. And part of what we're finding so far with all of the sharks that we're catching is majority of the sharks that are being caught for us are female sharks, and they're all quite a bit larger than the male sharks that we're catching. So about 95% have been female and about 5% have been male, and out of all of the sharks, the males have been the smallest.
So why do you think you're catching so many more females than males?
That is a very hard question because there are a lot of variables that can go into that. But it could be that they're coming into the Bay of Fundy to feed, to grow, because our sharks are ranging in size from about 6 feet for the females all the way up to almost 10 feet. And the males range in size from about 5 to about 7. So it's possible that they're utilizing the Bay of Fundy as an area to come and kind of bulk up. We have a good food sources here for them. So we think what's happening is they're coming, kind of getting away from the big boys and coming into the Bay of Fundy to feed until they're ready to interact with the larger males and ready to reproduce. Most of the females that we're catching don't have a lot of scarring on their pecs, their pectoral fins, or around their body. So usually what happens in shark reproduction is that the males will actually bite onto the females as they're trying to reproduce. And we're not seeing any of that scarring with the females that we're catching. So we believe that they're coming into the bay to kind of bide their time before reproduction.
That's so cool. I never knew that. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's very neat.
So the bay is home to a lot of different animals, and like the whales we see quite often and the sharks. What do you think makes it such a good place for them? Why do they come here? Why?
So the Bay of Fundy is such a unique place, and one of the big things that people, when they come and visit us, especially aboard the whale watching boat, they can't get over how dark the water is here. So our waters are very, very dark, very green. That means that our waters are very rich. They're full of life. You go down to the Caribbean, it's clear, it's beautiful, it's, really pretty.
Pristine.
Yeah, and you like to think that it's pristine. But that means that it's devoid of life. If you're going to see life, for the most part, it's usually around the reef systems, and it's the reef system that provides the productivity.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the Bay of Fundy, which, we are productive from top to bottom. So we have a lot of growth within our water column, so it makes it a great place for filter feeders, planktivores, and again, that starts from the bottom up. So we are a highly productive ecosystem that is capable of supporting many different species.
Absolutely, yeah. So out of all your years out on the bay, what's been some of the coolest things you've seen with whales or with sharks and fishing, anything like that?
So things that pop to mind right now, some of the coolest things that I've seen, of course, they have to be sharks, shark related.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the shark stuff is always really cool. Having witnessed great white shark predations, that's quite amazing. So seeing an actual, approximately 10 to 12 foot great white shark come out of the water and take a seal right in front of your eyes.
Yeah, we had a couple of those this summer.
We did, yes. So we had
cool.
5 documented white shark predations.
That's only 5 documented. You got to think about how many are actually happening too.
Those were the ones that we literally witnessed with our own eyes.
Man, why didn't I work those days?
There will be more opportunities. So. But so we have 5 confirmed video documented white shark predations. So that was absolutely amazing to be able to witness. That's, your National Geographic moment. But if we flip over to the whales, there's been so many moments. Again, we've been doing this for 22 years now, so there's just so much stuff to think of. But really what comes to mind are the interactions between mums and babies when you see those pairs. We've been very fortunate enough to witness mother and calf right whale pairs in the bay, so that's quite amazing. It's really cool to see and to hear the whales. We hear vocalizations occasionally, so to hear the humpbacks making those vocalizations are just phenomenal, and to hear the North Atlantic right whales as well. But saying that, those are big names out there. Everyone knows what a humpback is, and a lot of people know what North Atlantic right whales are. But I have to give a little love to our smaller whales as well, which are, of course, our rock stars, the minke whales.
The minke whales.
Yep. So
Stinky minkies.
Stinky minkies, yep, our loving little whales. So there's been so many amazing moments with those guys, and there's actually, Rudolph is actually still here in the bay. I just get reports.
Really?
Yeah, the Rudolph is still here feeding off of Spruce Island. So those guys are so close to my heart because they are the whales that are here sometimes year-round. So we get to spend the most time with those whales, and they're typically the most active. So they're usually the ones that are going to breach the most.
They're very busy little whales.
Busy
they're
little
so
whales,
cool.
And they're curious, they're inquisitive, they usually close approach the boat, and they can be little show-offs, which we enjoy.
I do love them.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a soft spot in my heart, though, for the finbacks.
Yes, the fins are amazing.
It's so cool. My favorite thing is telling people that they're looking at the second largest animal in the entire world, and then their reactions to that. I was always like, it's so big, and I'm like, yeah, they're huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell how big they are when they exhale. So the amount of air that's coming from their lungs through their blowhole is massive. So the exhale and you can hear that from a distance, is amazing to hear.
Oh, my favorite days are the kind of foggy, quiet days when it's flat out there, and all of a sudden you just hear that loud exhale, and like you know exactly where to look, and it's perfect. It's my favorite days out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and yeah, we definitely have to give love to the Finns too. They are absolutely amazing creatures. The greyhounds of the sea. So they are just so graceful, so amazing, and mom and baby pairs for those guys.
Yeah.
The mom and calf pairs are amazing to see as well.
We also have the porpoises that are here year round.
Yes, yeah,
pretty cute.
I took my quiz on to see which marine mammal I was, and I turned out to be a harbor porpoise.
That checks out.
Yep.
I was a blue whale.
Ah, nice, very nice.
I love it.
No, that's awesome. But yeah, no, the harbor porpoises are amazing little guys, and they're just so cool to see, and they just are everywhere here, which is so cool. We have one of the highest concentrations than anywhere in the world of harbor porpoise right here in the Bay of Fundy. So
I have to remind myself sometimes when we go out, people see the harbor porpoise get so excited, and in my head I'm like, yeah, it's a harbor porpoise, but then I take a step back and I'm like, these guys are so cool. Like, I love them.
Super cool. And again, back to the mom and calf pairs, like you see them with their babies, so cute.
They're so small.
Yeah, it's like super teeny tiny, and usually traveling together in large groups here in the Bay, which is really cool to see. Lots of food for them, so it's amazing to see them so up close and personal, and sometimes they get intermixed with the white-sided dolphins, which is really cool to see too.
Yes, the white-sided dolphins I've only seen twice, which is insane.
You sent me a good video 2 years ago of the white-sided dolphins.
Every time I've seen them, or both times.
You were crying in that one too.
Yeah, I cry pretty often on the boat. And I just love this job. It's so cool to be out there every day seeing all this different marine life, but the white-sided dolphins, we saw them this summer, and it was absolutely insane. Like, they just play with the boat, and they just follow you if you're going pretty slow, or like...
Yeah, and even if you're going a little bit faster, they bow ride sometimes.
It's so cool to see them there. Like, it's like in the movies when you see those pods of dolphins, and it's just constantly jumping out. It's just like, very few times is it whale watching as, like, dramatic as the movies make it seem. Never.
Yeah.
But that is one time where it always...
Yeah,
takes my breath away every time. I'm just always
the Bay of Fundy always seems to provide, for sure.
It does. Now, you mentioned earlier Rudolph, one of our minke whales. So we do have a little bit of a catalog of all these whales that we know. So can you tell us a little bit more about how we identify them, how we keep that?
We can, yeah, for sure. So there are so many minkies in our area, which is amazing. And minkies are actually one of the easier whales to identify here in the Bay for us. So we identify the whales based on the shape of their dorsal fin for the most part. So each minkie has the fin that's on their back, and it can be shaped differently. It can lean a certain way. It can have certain identifying characteristics. Sometimes you can only tell via photo if you're able to capture a photo, but sometimes they're very obvious, and you can see them, from a distance who is who. So we have one whale that's in our area that's named Stumpy. So Stumpy or Slice. Stumpy has been with us, and I believe I have seen Stumpy in my life. I have spent, I think, 14 summers with Stumpy. So Stumpy's been around for a long time, and he's actually missing his dorsal fin completely. So he's very easy to tell from a distance.
Yes.
And quite a large minke whale as well.
He's quite big.
Yep, so definitely a very firm 30 plus feet long. So so we try to ID and catalog all of the whales that we see when we're out there. So it's important for us to know who is who, what they're up to. Are the whales healthy? Are they moving around? Are they going somewhere else? So what we do is we try and get photo IDs for all of our species of whales, whether it be minkies, fins, humpbacks, or North Atlantic right whales. And we compile that into a catalog, and then we attempt to cross-reference our photos with different databases. So minkies, not a lot of research is done on minkies. So
no, not at all.
So we essentially keep our catalog to ourselves, so we know who is who, how many we've seen, what they're up to. Finbacks, again, very little research on finbacks, so we have a finback whale catalog as well.
Would you say they're one of the more difficult whales to catalog, because I find they all have very similar dorsal fins?
They do.
There's a couple that I know, like the one that has the slice in it from the prop.
Yep.
And then there's one... Scar, yeah. There's a couple that I know, but then for the most part I'm kind of like, there's one that makes the weird noise when they breathe out.
Yep.
And other than that, I'm kind of like, this is a finback.
Yeah, no, fins can definitely be a lot harder to identify. from a distance and while you're on board the boat. So a lot of the times for the fins, it does need to be photo ID. But another way to identify them other than the dorsal fin is, of course, the blaze, so the white color pattern that's found on either side of the whale's head. So that can be really difficult, and that you really need a photo ID for that. So finbacks can definitely be much more difficult to say who you have there right in front of you when you're aboard the boat. But when you do get a photo, it's fairly easy to match up who is who. So we keep our photos for our catalog for our finback whales in case down the road there ever is any research that occurs.
Done on them.
Yeah. We keep all of our humpback whale photos, and we identify those through fluke matcher. So we know, where the whales were possibly when they were born, if they have any, say, siblings, who their parents were, who their mom was, and things like that. So that's for the humpback whales, and then for the North Atlantic right whales, our photos are given to multiple institutes to try and determine who we've seen, who's in the bay. Yeah.
So with the humpbacks, and I believe the North Atlantics as well, you use the pattern on the flukes. So when they're cooperating and the fluke goes up, they have a very distinct pattern on them. Is that the same for the North Atlantics?
It's not. So the North Atlantic right whale is semi-based on the shape of the fluke itself, but it's actually based on the pattern of the callosities that are on the head. So the growths that are found on the rostrum. So each individual whale they're essentially whale lice growing in little colonies on their heads called callosities. Very cute. And you're able to identify those whales based on that, and that is much more difficult. So most of the time we leave that to the experts, the people that work directly with the New England Aquarium that deal with a lot of the right whale research.
But the humpbacks, as long as they're behaving and the fluke comes up, it's pretty easy to tell who is who.
Yeah, it's usually pretty easy. So the humpbacks, just the underside of the tail, and you can tell for the most part who is who, especially if you've had them in the area for a little while. But we do have transients that move through quite quickly, so sometimes it can take us a couple of days to find out, or even years. Sometimes there's mysteries for whales that they've never been recorded or never been logged into a catalog. So we see whales that have never been recorded before, which is quite amazing.
That's super cool.
It is very cool.
There is a couple that we know by heart, like Chevron out there.
Yes.
And then of course my absolute favorite whale, Sedge, is quite easy to tell without even seeing his fluke. He's got that big chunk missing out of his dorsal. I have a big old soft spot for Sedge.
Yeah, Sedge is an amazing whale. So again, like you said, very easy to identify. So Sedge, I don't know if he was born that way or how his dorsal fin looks, like the reasoning behind that. It does, to me, it looks like a propeller strike. But other than that one mark that's on his dorsal fin, he looks very healthy. It doesn't look like that there's been any interactions with boats other than that.
And he's been around for a couple years now, hey?
He has, I believe he was born in the 80s.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, and so Fluke Matcher has a good file on Mr. Sedge.
I love him.
So we enjoy getting to know our whales and sharing that passion with the public as well, which is really important, because once you get to know a specific whale, and they can put a name to a whale, we find a lot of the times, you're developing bonds, you're making a connection, and that makes people more likely to want to protect that species and the areas that they inhabit. So we really try to promote conservation because that is so important.
On the topic of protecting these guys, is there any areas in the Bay of Fundy or around here that is a marine protected area, or is that just all onto the boat captains to be careful?
So we stress highly about, being very safe around the whales. And a lot of the times what we do is we'll actually just shut our engines off and let the whales do their thing when they're around us. So that's the best way to do it. So that decreases the amount of noise in the water column. And it really makes the whales feel more comfortable that they're able to just kind of go about their daily life, which is what we want.
Absolutely.
In terms of marine protected areas, I believe that there are proposals in for marine protected areas in the Bay of Fundy right now, but I'm not sure what their statuses are for those.
I think that since it's such like an area of abundance of things, of animals, that they would have something on the go for it. So hopefully that comes out.
Hopefully, yeah. And I think they're in the works right now. They're in discussions with the fishing industries and things like that, because there are a lot of people that have connections to the area and will need to have their say in how the government regulates the area.
Yeah. So being a woman in science, how has that, like, do you love it? In ocean science,
yes,
it's the best, right?
Yes, yeah. So it is one of the most rewarding jobs in the entire world to take people out and to show them things that they might necessarily never see in their lifetime.
Absolutely.
So to be that conduit is just, I go home at the end of the day and I feel fulfilled and happy and ecstatic, and that I'm able to share my life and what, you know, I've gotten to grow up with people from all around the world. So I think, you know, just being able to do this as a job is a dream come true.
So cool. And we've both said multiple times that we both feel so much more at home whenever we're near or on the water. And
Absolutely.
It's just, we could be anywhere in the world, but if we're near the water, we're happy.
That's right.
Feels like home.
That's
and I
right.
love it.
Yeah, marine science is definitely home, and the ocean is where we're meant to be.
It's so cool. It's the best. And the Bay of Fundy is pretty great itself.
It is.
Lots of different things to see here.
Definitely.
You did your master's, I believe, on the intertidal zone, which you said is kind of how you got into this. So you did something with sea urchins, I believe?
did, yep. So my master's was based on actually integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. So it's the integration of different
in English,
species.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's the integration of different species into an aquaculture site to essentially make its own little ecosystem. So it's utilizing alternate species to take away any waste that you're seeing coming off of a salmon farm. So my portion of my master's degree was actually looking at urchins and then how they consume fecal material that come from salmon.
That's super cool. That's a big topic here because we do have
huge topic.
lots of salmon farms around.
We do, yes. So salmon farming is huge in the Bay of Fundy, and it's actually one of the first places in Canada to start farming.
Really?
Yeah, so back in the 80s, I believe the early 80s, they started salmon farming here. So the science that's behind the industry is amazing, and it's new and evolving all the time, which is really, really cool. So again, my little component was looking at how urchins can reduce the impact of salmon farms on the surrounding waters, so which is really cool.
That's really cool. I love that.
Yes.
I didn't know that really.
Yeah.
I knew that you kind of done something about that, but I never really I should ask you about more stuff.
Yeah, I cut up a lot of sea urchins.
Gross. I love them. They're so weird when you hold them in your hands. You can like feel them.
Feel them, yeah, their spines moving as they walk along, and the Aristotles Lantern I always thought was so cool. I used to find them on the beach when I was little, and I always wanted to know, you know, what they were and what was going on, and to find out that was actually their little mouth with their little beak, their little 5-pointed beak underneath. And so, you know, as I grew up and became, you know, a little bit more in depth in science, I still love urchins, but they're not so fun to dissect all the time.
We do have the touch tank on the boat where we
do.
usually have the sea urchins and the sea stars in there, among other things.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things is when people are holding it, I'll be like, so its teeth are actually on your hand right now. And I have had a couple sea urchins tossed up in the air.
Yep.
Luckily, I'm very quick and can catch them.
Yes, yeah.
We have had a couple casualties, however.
Yes, unfortunately, but
happens.
yeah, no, we try to be as gentle as possible.
We do. We love it. And it's so cool to see kids' faces, getting them really like... I've had kids
Engaged,
on the boat leaving be like, I want to be a marine biologist now, which is honestly my favorite thing to hear. I'm like, yeah, do it. Please. We need more of you. We need more people to care about the environment.
That is one of my favorite things to hear.
I love it. There's a couple kids that I've met, and I'm still in touch with them, and one of them was convinced when she left. She's like, I am being the next to you. And I was like, I have never been so flattered. And she's like, just the marine biology part, though. And I was like, okay, I understand that much.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to see the sparks in their eyes when it comes to, you know, like the love and the passion and wanting to know more. And so that's what we love to see.
They're very inquisitive kids. And I always get asked on the boat, they're like, don't you get annoyed by asking, or like all these kids asking questions? I'm like, no, I love it. Because you see that like switch flip, like just like, this is what I care about now.
Yeah.
And it's so cool, and they get to learn so much.
They make that connection, yeah.
Seeing their eyes light up or hearing the gasps when they see their first whale, or like a couple times we've seen a shark on the boat, kids have been like screaming with excitement, and it's just...
Other than you.
Yeah, someone other than me crying and screaming is amazing to have on the boat. And like just to see these kids so excited and just loving it makes me so excited for like the next generation of marine biologists to come.
Yeah, no, it's such an amazing feeling to be able to share your passion and your love for what you do, and to have that reciprocated in the general public, which is really amazing. Not many professions you can say provides you with that opportunity.
Absolutely. So with that being said, what would be your advice to someone who wants to get started in marine biology, or to any young kids listening that want to pursue this? How do they do it?
Just be curious. Get out there, you know, go explore your natural environment, whether it be the intertidal zone, whether it be the forest, whether it be, you know, your local park. Just get out there and explore, ask questions. Don't be shy. You know, don't be scared. Everything is out there for us to explore, and there are people that want you to learn more, and hopefully one day all these young people that are up and coming, you know, will be the future leaders and the future people that are advocating for, you know, healthy ecosystems and healthy animals. So
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. I'm so excited that you were on this podcast. I loved having you on. Thank you again.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was my first podcast, so
Mine too.
Yeah, I think you did absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to hear everything that you do.
Oh, I'm so excited. We have a lot of big things planned for this podcast, so that's really exciting. But I can't wait to work with you again this summer and get that all going again. I'm so excited. Come visit Island Quest. We would love to have you.
Yes, yeah, we open the first week of June, so Jill and I will be waiting for you.
We will. So before we leave, do you have any social media you'd like to plug, like the Island Quest pages?
Yeah, so if you're interested in any of our whale watching stuff, then you can find us online at Facebook at Island Quest Whale and Wildlife Cruises. You can also find us online on our website, Island Quest whaleandwildlifecruises.com. Yes. I'm quite sure. It's a long one. If you just type in Island Quest, it'll come up. But if you're interested in any of the shark stuff, you can find us on our Facebook page, St. Andrews Sport Fishing. And any questions that don't reach me and reach Jill, she will always pass them along to me.
Absolutely. And I will have all those linked in the description of this podcast. So thank you again, Nicole.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill.
I am truly so happy that Nicole was the first guest on this podcast. She's really played a big part in me finding my direction of what I want to do and has taught me so much about whales and sharks and the Bay of Fundy in general. And I'm so happy that she agreed to come on and share her knowledge here. So you can find any notes from this podcast listed in the description below, along with all of our social medias, as well as that for Island Quest and St. Andrews Sport Fishing. We'd love for you to follow along on both of those and hopefully see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for listening. Stay salty.